Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today is Saturday, December 3rd, 2022, and unfortunately I don't have a snow melting video for you guys because it's 51 degrees and raining right now. So all the snow we got from that previous video, the big November Buffalo storm, at least here where I am, it's all gone. No snowbanks, no nothing, melted off this week. So instead I thought I would come down here and maybe do a quick top 5 frequently asked questions that I've been getting a lot on the channel. I got a lot of new subscribers. Thanks to all of you for being here and taking interest in this project. So let's get started. Number 5, question I get asked all the time in the comments is, how much electricity does this system use? Or, wow, that must cost him a fortune in electric. For those of you that aren't aware, this system is not electric. It's hydronic. Now there is some electricity used by some of the pumps, yes, but for the most part, this is heated antifreeze. It's propylene glycol that's heated by these natural gas tankless heaters, and it's circulated through the driveway. That's how it works. There is some minor electricity use with the pumps when the system's on, and I explain this in other videos. I've got a ton of videos on my channel for those of you that are new and want to learn about this, but when the snow melt's on, this pump runs continuous the whole time it's on. It's a big pump. It's a Taco 0013 stainless steel. Probably pulls in 220 watts when it's running. So it's not a light pump like these more efficient Tacos that I use for the radiant in the house. But it does use some electricity, but not the amount of electricity as if this was a electric element heated surface. I know they sell electric snow melt systems. You can see them all over online. We've got one in the building I work. It's electric line and it heats up through resistance and melts the snow in the same way, just different. This is hydronic. So electricity costs, honestly, really didn't notice any electricity costs after running this. Our electric bills, we've been slowly converting everything over to LED lights at the same time. So, really, and it's not like this is on all the time. We turn this on for a few hours to melt the snow and we turn it off. So it's not like it's running every day for 3 months straight all winter. It's just not the case. So it's pretty minimal. But another point here that I guess I could bring up for those of you that are new and might be interested in another upcoming project is solar. You're going to see that, a new playlist, a whole bunch of videos on that coming up. So we're going to put solar panels on the house, and that's going to offset any electricity used by these pumps or these units or anything down here. It's going to offset more than 100%. I think we're at like 125% with the array that we spec'd out for the whole house. So I'm also going to be doing some videos on converting my buffer tank here, which is a natural gas, it's an electric tank, HTP 20-gallon electric tank that I took the electric heating element on and put an aquastat in. And I'm just using it as a buffer tank. And I've got all sorts of videos that explain how I do that and why. But I'm actually going to be putting a 5,000 watt heating element back in that so that the electric part of it, again offset by the solar, can take care of more the daily standby usage. Is a little 20-gallon tank with a 5,000 watt element going to keep up with back-to-back showers? No, but I'm going to wire it in a way with relays and everything so that during the day when nobody's here, actually now during the day when nobody's here, I've got this program where the whole thing shuts off. But a day like Saturdays and Sundays, this will come on, every hour and a half, 2 hours to reheat the tank. It only runs for 3 minutes, but it's firing these tankless units to bring that water back up. Instead, I'd like to just have the electric heating element do that, offset 100% by the solar, and basically it's not costing me anything to maintain that. And I'll wire it in a way that when somebody is taking a shower, if the heating element in the tank can't keep up, we'll go ahead, we'll fire the tank pump, bring the tankless units on, they'll take care of it in 2.5 minutes, recirc that whole tank, and we're done. So all of that to come. If you're new, subscribe, and you'll be getting notifications when I start that project. So question number 4 I get asked a lot in the comments is, how hot does it get? Looking at the videos, I've had people, and again, people that just aren't aware of a system like this, I've had people ask, does it damage your car tires? Because if you're watching the time-lapse videos, it does look hot, right? It looks, now it's sped up because it's a time lapse, but you would think that like the surface of that driveway is 90 degrees and it's melting that snow off. Really, guys, the surface temp of the driveway is only designed to get between 40 and 45 degrees Fahrenheit. That's it. It's only got to be above 32 to start melting snow. So on a winter day when that driveway's on and fully up to temperature, you can go out and put your hand on it. You really can't even tell. Now down here in the basement, if I put my hand on this slab down here, it's warm because this slab is, 70 degrees, whatever I have it set to here, 72 degrees. So the driveway is not the case. Yes, we're pumping out much hotter glycol out to the driveway, but the driveway is also this big mass and open space outside, so the atmosphere is sucking the heat off that slab very, very quickly. But if you put your hand on the back of the slab, it doesn't even feel warm, but it's warmer than 32. It melts the snow. With relation to that, how hot does it get? I'm also asked, what temperature glycol are you sending out? How hot is the water? People call it water, but really it's antifreeze. Otherwise, it would freeze when it's off, right? Like right now, I mean, it's 50 out right now, but normal winter day when it's not snowing, this isn't running. If this was filled with water, the pipes would freeze because it definitely gets below freezing. So to answer that question, it's all dependent on the temperature of the slab. So when you first fire it up, the temperature coming back is colder because that slab's really cold. So the heaters, the glycol running across the flat plate heat exchanger that's in here. Again, I've got a ton of videos. Check out my channel. The heaters can only transfer, or the flat plate can only transfer so much heat over to the secondary side to be put into the driveway. So when you first fire this thing up, depending on outdoor temperature, let's say the outdoor temperature is 30 degrees, 28 degrees, normal snow weather, it does actually get too cold to snow. Usually when it's 0, 5, 10 degrees out, it's not snowing. So we'll go with that 25, 30 degree range. Usually I'll get a supply going out that's around 80 degrees Fahrenheit. After an hour, you'll start to see it go up to 90, and then once the whole thing is fully up to temperature where it's now cycling on and off every 15 minutes, then it's usually 100 degrees Fahrenheit going out, and usually I'm getting anywhere between 65 and 80 coming back. And that return glycol is actually what controls the primary loop pump down here that turns on the heaters. These aquastats sense the temperature of the return glycol, and when it senses that the coolant, the antifreeze coming back from the driveway is getting too cold, that's what turns on the heaters to provide more heat to the driveway. And once the whole thing is brought up to temperature, it gets into a rhythm, and you'll see this, and I can put a link down below to one of the other videos. It's like a 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off cycle. So the heaters will come on, run for 15 minutes, pump a bunch of heat out there, and then the heaters will shut off. The pump stays on, so the driveway is always circulating, but it doesn't need more heat. So it'll slowly lose its heat. 15 minutes later, it'll fire the heaters, add more heat, and it's more efficient that way. You're not running these heaters non-stop for hours on end when really they only need to be run twice an hour. So it's 50% savings over running it. Plus, you keep pumping all that heat out there, the temperature of that driveway is going to get hot, 50, 55, 60 degrees, and it's not necessary. It's just a waste of energy. So question number three I get asked, where does the water go? People ask me, oh my gosh, you must have a big flood or a pool down at the end of your driveway. It all comes down into your basement. This just must flood everything that you have. And guys, it's just not true. I get a little bit of runoff, especially during a big melt that you'll see in some of my more recent videos, but most of it evaporates. Some of it does run down over the sidewalk and over the apron and into the street, but usually, it'll refreeze, and usually it's not a big deal just to shovel it off. It's not a problem. People ask, oh, does the town get mad at you for flooding the street? It's nothing like that. You could drive down the street and not see a difference at the end of my driveway versus anybody else's driveway. It looks the same. So there might be some ice chunks up on the snowbank where I shoveled it, but otherwise there's no flooding. Nothing comes down into the basement. I've got drains along the house here that I installed. I've got videos of that. So none of that water could even make it into the basement, even if it wanted to. But water runoff here for me in my particular install is not an issue. And you'll see in the videos, a lot of times once it's melted, it'll just keep evaporating what's coming down. It's not like, you know, if you get a big melt where you melt in 6-8 inches all at once, yes, you'll get a bunch of runoff. But otherwise, the snowflakes hit, it turns to water, it sits there until it stops snowing and it dries. It's not the water runoff is not a problem. So number two, I would say this is probably the second most often question that I'm asked is, how much does it cost to run? So I did do a video of this back in February of 21. I did like a video of the entire month on how much this costs to run. Back in February of 21, it was about 50 cents an hour. And I've had people say, come on, you know, that's not true. That's it, guys. You know, this is not super expensive. Yes, 50 cents an hour is expensive, especially if you have to run it for 3 or 4 days like we just did for this big November 22 Buffalo storm. But, you know, that's it. Now, it runs harder and more expensive when it first fires up, of course. Okay, so when you first turn it on, like I was saying, and it's got to bring that cold slab up to temperature from 25 degrees to 45 degrees, you're going to notice on a lot of my startup videos that I've done, I do a BTU readout here. We're using 250, 300,000 BTUs, where once it's up to temperature and running, it's typically 100, 130, you know, it's in that range depending on where it is in its 15-minute run time. If it's towards the end, it's you know, sometimes even less than 100,000 BTUs. It all depends. So the longer you run the system, the more efficient it gets. Okay, and I like to explain that just like a car going down the highway, right? Like, yes, from a start, you use more gas to accelerate it up to 55 or 60 miles an hour. But once you get there, you put the cruise control on and it just sips fuel as it goes along. That's exactly like this. So now I will note that natural gas prices, at least here in the Northeast, have skyrocketed since I first installed this. Now my costs are more closer to probably a dollar an hour to run, which is getting a little more expensive than it was, but not horrible. I don't consider that horrible. When you consider, you know, the cost of a plow service, okay, and what the plow service is going to do. Number one, if I leave one of the cars out of the garage, and yes, I do have a heated 2-car garage. I get people telling me all the time, you know, it looks like you should have put the money into the garage. I have a garage. I also enjoy doing woodworking projects and other things. Sometimes I got to leave a car out of the garage, you know, to do a project. It happens. With a plow, they're not going to get past that minivan in the driveway, okay? So they're going to stop there, do the rest. Nothing in front of it's going to get done. They're not going to do sidewalks. They're not going to do any of that. Salt kills concrete. I mean, if I was to salt this whole thing, it would eat this driveway up in a few years. It just is what it is. So cost, you know, you could look at it as $1 an hour is, wow, that's insanely expensive. But most snow events here don't last much more than a few hours. Yes, you do need to run this a little bit extra because it's got to be dry before it turns off. If you turn the slab off when it's still wet, it will refreeze, and then you've just got an ice skating rink. So you do have to run it a few hours after the snow stops to let it completely dry off. And I try to show that in a lot of my time-lapse videos. I let it run till the end when it'll actually dry off so you guys can see it. But, you know, you can look at that relative to a lot of things. $1 an hour, some people might say, oh my gosh, that's insane. Other people would say, you know, it would cost me for a plow service here every time they came, probably 25 bucks at least. You know, 30 bucks. That's this thing running for one full day, and this thing's melting it right up to the edge of every single surface of my driveway. It's getting under the cars and it's completely drying it. And there's no snowplow blade being dragged across the surface of my concrete, and they're not messing up my grass, and they're not hitting my landscaping and everything else, and they're not leaving these massive snow piles down at the end of the road that now I can't see backing out of my driveway. Like there's a lot more to it than just cost of one thing versus cost of another, right? So you got to kind of take all of that into consideration where, you know, instead of sitting around waiting for a plow service, I flip this switch right here or take out my phone and do it from my phone, and I go to bed. And when I come up, it's melted. It's clear and dry. So, you know, to each their own, but I don't think that it's that bad when it comes to cost. So last and finally, number one, by far, the number one question that I get asked all the time about this is, how much did it cost? How much did it cost to install? How much did you pay to have it installed? You know, all of that. So I'll try to answer a lot of that, and maybe I'll throw some videos up or put some statistics up on the screen here too. But so first of all, I didn't hire anybody to do any of this. I hired a contractor to help me with the driveway, with the concrete. Okay, but he was more responsible just for the concrete side of it. I did everything relating to the snow melt and the PEX and all of that. You'll if you look out there and you see somebody zip tying down all the PEX, that's me. Okay, I laid out the insulation boards. I designed it. I hired a couple of my neighbors to come down for the day and help me. You'll see them in one of the installation videos. Again, you know, just neighbors, and they were looking for some work, and I said, yeah, you know, you want to help me zip tie down some PEX, I'll pay you. And so I did hire them. Otherwise, everything you see here, I did. I had never soldered before starting this project, so I taught myself how to solder copper. And you know, I'd never done anything like this. People ask, oh, are you a plumber? No, I'm not a plumber. I'm not in the trades. I do computer stuff for a living. That's what I do. So nothing to do with hydronics or any of this. I taught myself how to do it, you know, do research. And now with my channel, you guys can kind of cheat, because I'll walk you through the whole thing from the beginning to the end with over 100 videos on how exactly to do it. So just go to my playlist. I'll put a link below and watch the whole thing. And you can do this. Guys, if I can do this, you can do this. So total cost of what I have involved into all of this, obviously not including my labor and not including the concrete, because we needed the driveway done anyway. Our old driveway was falling apart. Okay, I'm just under about $10,000. Now, some of you will take a step back and be like, oh my gosh, you know, $10,000, that's insane. That's a lot of money. You know, the way I look at it is, some people spend money on, you know, golf or sports. Some people spend a lot of money on cars. You know, I'm sure a lot of you out there right now are spending a lot of money on cars. I'm driving a 10-year-old minivan. You know, it's just to each their own. I enjoy building things. I enjoy designing, and I've got more of a mechanical engineering mindset, I think, to where I loved doing this. I had a blast figuring all this out. You know, how the heck am I going to fit all of that stuff into this space right here? And yeah, would I have loved more room? Yes. Do I have it? No. So it was challenging to figure out how to route all of this to get this to fit exactly where I wanted it. But I had a blast doing it. You know, I had fun cutting the copper and soldering it. And did I have leaks? Absolutely. And I didn't cut any of that out. So if you go back and watch my videos, I've got videos of leaks. And I've had people comment, you know, oh, what a mess, you know, what a disaster. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. Okay, you know, I didn't at the time, but I left the stuff in and I showed you guys, you know, yeah, I had leaks, and I went back and fixed them, and now we're coming up on 3 years, and this thing's flawless. I don't do anything to it, really. I mean, it just works. I change and clean the little filters underneath here, which I have a video on. I also flush the units, and I flush the flat plate out once a year with vinegar. And I have video on that. So that's it. I mean, now that it's done, it's done. It just sits here and runs. I take out my phone, I turn on the snow melt, it melts the driveway, I turn it off, we're done. So cost, if you guys were to hire somebody, I had quotes. I got this whole project quoted. And I had quotes of 40 grand, 50 grand. I think my highest one was maybe $60,000 or $70,000, but that's me not doing anything and just writing a check and coming in. They probably wouldn't use tankless hot water heaters. Most plumbers wouldn't do this. Most plumbers are going to do a boiler. you know, like a full Wiesmann, Lochinvar, you know, NTI, some sort of a nice boiler. I chose to go this route. I've been really happy with this route. You know, to each their own. I'm not going to get into the big debate over boilers versus tankless water heaters, whatever. Whatever you want to use, you can use. Some of the bigger ticket items of that $10,000, you know, obviously these units were probably about, I want to say these were around $1,000 a piece. So there's $2,000 there. You know, you've got other bigger expense things like, you know, the Belimo valves. These valves are my bypass valves that circulate the zones. So those weren't cheap. You know, I've probably got $1,000 in these valves. The pumps weren't cheap. You know, probably another maybe $1,000 in pumps. So, you know, the PEX isn't horrible. I did have a lot of it here, so I've probably got $1,500. I know it was at least $1,200 for just the driveway and PEX. The radiant, I've done so much of the radiant in the house over this past 5 or 6 years that I really didn't consider that part of a project, part of the $10,000, because it was already in, you know, and it wasn't super expensive. PEX, I think PEX is cheap. So, you know, the manifolds were an expense. The copper was a big expense. You know, copper's not cheap anymore at all, and I used a lot of it, especially the 1.5 inch stuff. You know, this is expensive. So it all adds up. You know, where did I buy my stuff? A lot of it online, you know, most of it online, supplyhouse.com, Amazon, eBay. I found some pumps on eBay. I think these guys came from Amazon. I would just shop around and find the best price on whatever I could. And it'll vary. Like originally, I think where I bought one of these pumps, you know, PEX Warehouse or something. Then like 2 weeks later, the other one was cheaper at PEX Universe or somewhere else. You know, you just got to shop around and, you know, get the best deal. Most of it's all the same stuff. So it really doesn't matter where you get it. A lot of it is all very similar or the same. So a lot of this down here came from Supply House. I think the tank I got from Home Depot online, had that delivered. And then, you know, the cabling I ordered, the boxes from Amazon. So just pieced here and there wherever I could get stuff. Another huge expense that you really wouldn't even think about on a project like this, at least I didn't until the end, because that's when I needed it, was the glycol. This Cryotech 100 antifreeze, propylene glycol, it's non-toxic, and that's really what you want to use in something like this. You don't want ethylene glycol like in your car, because that's toxic. And if you have a leak, or if I needed to drain this or something, you know, that's hard to dispose of, and I don't want to deal with that. This stuff's, you know, food grade safe. So, but it's expensive. I've probably got at least $1,000 to $1,500 just in the antifreeze to fill this. And I didn't really realize that until the end, because I didn't fill it till the end, where all of a sudden I'm going to order this and it's like, oh my gosh, like, well, what do you do now? You know, you can't not fill it. It's all built. I've got to fill it. And you know, you order the antifreeze. So it is what it is. But anyway, that's the top 5. Quick video on the top 5 questions, frequently asked questions that I get about this system. If there's anything else you guys want to see or you want to know, if it's not already covered in one of my videos, just ask me. I try to keep up on the comments. There's been a lot more of them lately now that my channel's really getting some attention and taking off. I try to keep up with them, so if I don't write you back right away, you know, don't take it personal. I'll get there. But anyway, yeah, if there's something you want to see, let me know. If I don't already have a video on it, I'll come down here and make a video on exactly what I did. So yeah, that's pretty much the system, guys. Hey, thanks for watching, and thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Welcome to all these new people I've got coming in. Hopefully you stick around. The channel was never really meant just to be a snowmelt channel. It was more meant to be a DIY channel of everything, which I think we'll get to when we do the solar a little bit. You guys will hopefully like that project. And it's going to tie into this because, like I said, I've got some things in the works here to, you know, to connect it with this. Solar kind of connects to everything because it's electricity, right? But hopefully you guys will enjoy that build. And I've got a few other little things up my sleeve for the channel in the future. So hopefully once you're here, you'll stay here. In the winter, my goal is, yes, it'll definitely be very snowmelt oriented. Any changes I make down here, I'll record them, I'll put up videos. any big events or even little events, as long as the driveway's on, I'm going to try to have the camera out there doing a time lapse. I've invested in a new GoPro, so hopefully we can get the lighting a little bit better on the driveway. I've invested in a microphone to try to get the sound a little bit better. So I'm trying to improve the experience for you. You know, just yeah, hopefully moving forward we're good. So yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.